We have the team for pre-application briefing for the land adjacent to Cambridge North Station Milton, which is a re-application of the application rejected at the last meeting. So if you would like to...
How do we control this?
If you're controlling, you need to take the lead.
Reinterpretation of the word right.
Good morning, thank you everyone. Good to see you again, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about our scheme again. That's the current site condition. I don't need to dwell on that. You all know the site very well. And this is the refusal of the planning permission, because I thought we would not waste your time. We would very much concentrate on the reasons for refusal. And what I'd like to point out there is some of the keywords that we've been working on. And the section of the proposed site core directly adjacent to the office building. By reason of its proximity to the building relative to the lack of setback of the building and insufficient curtilage for the ground floor retail units and its design, including inadequate width, would fail to provide an unacceptable layout and would therefore result in unacceptable conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists, contrary to the key policy TR4. So I think it's quite a narrow reason for refusal, which is great for us because we've been able to concentrate on that. So we met with your officers subsequently, and on the 28th of November we had a very useful meeting with the cycle campaign. Very useful meeting indeed, actually. And I think as a consequence we have a better scheme, which is great. So Alison, if you could pop on to the next slide. So that was the scheme that was refused, and the key issue here, and I don't think we've got a pointer, Alison, you can just use the cursor, was you could just move that to the cycle path, so where the path was in relation to the retail units.
Yes.
So it was the proximity directly adjacent to that, and what we have to the right are the dimensions to it. But I think it was the fact that it was immediately adjacent to the retail frontages that was causing concerns for this committee. So we move on to the next slide, Alison. So the changes we've made is in the northwest corner retail and office lobby. We've changed that to reduce the retail unit. So we've taken the retail space out to release space at the back by sort of the buildings. So at the back of the building, on the guided bus, the 86 Sheffield stands space outside the north and west moved inside. And this made more space on the west side. So what we've tried, because I think it was about can you push the building back, I think was the key element here. So the new office building is repositioned in order to accommodate a wider and separate cycle path. So in effect, the proposal would be 1.3 metres to the west, which is down and to the bottom, and 2.5 metres to the northwest, which is the little side road, the little link road at the top. What we've also done is remove the seating on the eastern elevation. You can point to that, Alison. That was just to declutter that side of the square. We've also looked at the provision of off-gauge cycles inside the bike store and reconfiguration of the loading bay. Alison, you can point to that. So we've swapped those 3 disabled spaces around with the loading bay to make to get the disabled place closer to the office building. Now, if I take you to the next slide, that's a blow up of what we've done. So, in pushing the building back and to the north, what we've been able to do is create and I think it's the bottom right thing is the easiest one for us to look at. As always with these things, it's never as clear as you hope, is it? So what we've got is a 3 metre gap from the front of the shops to the cycleway. The cycleway. Yeah, sorry, I'm pointing to that, yeah. So that's the frontage there, that gap. That's 3 metres.
Okay.
So we've pushed the building back, that's given us 3 metres curtilage, which I think was something that we wanted. We've then got the separate dedicated cycle route in the middle, which is 3 metres, and then we've got an additional 2.76 metres to the edge of the parking area and the square itself. And as we turn the corner to the entrance, the image above, we've actually got even more space outside the cycle path. So the area outside there is 3.8 metres with the cycle path remaining the same, 3 metres. So that's probably the key detail, that we have been able to deal with that. It gives us a little bit more breathing space outside the building. It provides that dedication in terms of the cycle route. It preserves the trees in the square. There's some discussion whether or not we think the trees are important, because the next discussion that we'll have with members and with the cycle campaign is how we treat that cycle path. Our view is it's part of the public square, and we agree that it should be distinguished in terms of materials. So we're looking at granite sets, flush, and then a different type of paving within that. Ideally, we'd like to keep the same palette of colour, but I think the Cycle Campaign's view is that it's helpful if it's distinguished, and they're not asking for a remarkably vibrant red, but their thoughts are typically the Dutch model is pink or a slight reddish hue that gives a little bit more clarity to that. But I think that's a detail that is a condition. Ultimately, we think there's a balance between the public space and the materials that's being used and the colours, but ultimately you can condition that. So if you want it a little bit more pink or whatever, then you can do that. So that's the fundamentals. Moving on to just some intersections through the building. That gives you an idea of the space that we've got. That's the revolving doors into the area. That's the 3.8, the 3 metres, the tree. So we think it's a nice, generous space as you'd want through a public square. And I think there's another. If you go to the last slide, I think it's just the details of the. Let me just come on to. Go that way. Was it okay? I've got another slide which is just the cycle numbers, which is 320. We got it there, correctly, which is 324 spaces. 30 spaces including visitors. We've shown those on the right-hand side. You can point to the 14 and the 16. I'm not a big fan of those visitor spaces, if I'm honest. If you look what's happened in the square at CV1, I think if you're looking about clean, thorough, that's the standard, and I think the Cycle Campaign wouldn't mind them not being there as well, not because Andrew showed those that we can show you pictures at 4 o'clock in the morning. Those pipes do not move; they seem to be growing. So there needs to be some management of that. But the standard says that. But that, again, if you were content, we can include it or we can not include it. That's entirely within your gift. And then if you look at the bottom, we've got a lot of lockers, 100 lockers for the 3 showers in there. And we've found space for some cargo bikes within the scheme as well. So we put more of the cycling inside. So I think it's actually a better scheme. Whilst I shouldn't say that, sometimes a good discussion does help. Well, I think it is. I think it works on a number of levels, and it's great to have the opportunity to get in some of the details. Where the off-road bikes are going to go, the bright yellow bikes, I don't know. There's certain things we can't.
We had a bloke on it. Excited going, I think.
But that's effectively. Now I'm here with Andrew Rawlins, who's our transport consultant. So if there's any questions to deal with the specifics, we're happy to help.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Councillor Cantavaro, Councillor Bryan.
Just, I do like having a good argument about cycleways, but on this occasion I would say that it's extremely good. We've been talking about having dedicated cycle space through large public areas before, and it's fantastic to sit. So I'm extremely happy on that. Sort of a couple of details. I mean, I think that's very good. 3 metres that we were talking about the width of cycleways earlier on, and 3 metres generally for a cycleway is on the narrow side. When you've got a lot of traffic, but obviously the case here, there's also lots of other things going on. You don't want people going through the through cycles going very fast, and 3 metres will at least make people aware of what's going on elsewhere. That's good. I think the sort of more general question I was going to ask is what else is going to go in that space? You said you've removed the seating from the space between the cycleway and the curb, which seems sensible because then you're sort of preventing people sort of milling around running across the cycleway. And then there's those visitor spaces. The main problem with them, I would say, is that it then forces people, sort of pedestrians into the cycleway, so it wouldn't sort of counterproductive actually. And similarly, another problem with the station square in the centre of town is that you've got these large areas of seating outside. It's not the principle of having seating, but it's that it forces causes conflict. And so obviously I don't think there's enough space there for any additional seating. So I'll be certainly looking for some reassurance on that.
Okay, thank you. Just caution members against making remarks which can be taken as predetermined.
Right. I take back any remarks that might have been
I'm loving this too, don't worry.
So maybe we just ask for clarification issues.
I think there was a draft condition on the previous application that removed seating outside.
Okay. Councillor Bradley.
Chair. I just wanted to clarify, did I hear you say, and did I understand you to mean that you're going to remove the retail for the ground floor?
You can go back, Alison, to the reducing it, not removing it.
I was surprised, yeah.
Northwest corner, but we had to find room for the bikes that we displaced from outside. So the retail is in brown. So you can see the retail is on the eastern elevation, is in entirely active frontage, and we've maintained an active frontage to the northwest as well.
So somewhere you said you'd removed a bit?
We have, if you go back to the early one, see that there? We've reduced it.
Sorry, is that, but this is the amended scheme?
If you go back to the earlier scheme, Alison, and you can see it's a bigger area of brown, so we've reduced that area of brown there.
So the retail frontage along the eastern boundary of the building is the same,
But it's been pushed
but
back.
it's moved back
Correct.
by, what was it,
1.3.
1 point something metres? Okay.
When enabling
But,
us to push it to the northwest as well, it's given us that space
Yes.
outside the building.
It's 2.5 and 1.3, so in total it's about 3 metres that it's been set back.
But that's great, and I'm really encouraged to see that. I'm just still slightly anxious about those doorways still opening onto now at least a pedestrian walkway rather than directly onto the sidewalk, which is a big improvement, but
They don't open onto it, they open inwards.
Yes.
Okay.
They open inwards.
I think there's a slight inconsistency between those two plans. On the left, the doorways are shown going inwards.
inset,
And
yes.
in normal operation, they will be inward doors, but the architect has been correct on the other elevation and say that they can go outwards in case of fire and emergency.
Yeah.
But it's slightly confusing. The normal operation is that they will be inward opening doors, but yeah, in the case of emergency, they can be. They
Okay.
can go out.
And the other thing I wanted to pick up on was, I would agree with what you and Councillor Van der Waal have said about the parking racks for visitors, because don't forget, just across the square there's a huge stack of double-decker parking for bikes as well, and hopefully you are providing sufficient for visitors, but I think it would be very unwise to have it outside the front of the building because it will certainly move people onto the cycleway. But thank you very much for your modifications. I'm very encouraged by it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillors Lacey, Lincoln and Agent. Okay, Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased that you've made special provision for cargo bikes. I'd be interested to know what exactly that is, given that cargo bikes don't need a Sheffield stand, but they do need some sort of secure means of making sure that the bike can't be taken away. And also that means presumably that you don't regard cargo bikes as being appropriate in whatever stands you decide to put at the front. And I hope those stands will be wide enough for my bike, which is not a cargo bike, but is significantly wider than average.
I don't think they're permitted to have a special Lacey.
Alison, go to the last slide. I think we try to include there the gap. Because I think one of the discussions, we are having a discussion with Claire, their rankings. I think that was one of the outstanding matters from last time, was the discussion with the cycling ordinance. So that's the gaps that we've got with the ranks at the moment.
Yeah, in terms of oversized bikes, we're not looking to put in actual Sheffield stands. We're looking to put in some kind of, whether it's a loop in the floor that we can just chain them to, because there's all sorts of different makes and sizes of oversized bikes. So I don't think it's appropriate to put Sheffield stands in those spaces, because it will preclude one that's already, a certain type of bike that is around at the moment or yet to be invented.
Sorry, I have a list. Councillor Lincoln, please.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you've tried to address the reason of refusal from the previous committee meeting, and that's you concentrated obviously on the railway side. In terms of the move sort of back towards the sort of western side of the site in question, what's the change in distance of the of the pathway area, presumably there's going to be retail units with possible need for a little bit of curtilage space on that side. What's the change in diameters on the western side where the adjacent to the busway? It looks like the pathway's been reduced, and obviously there's seating halfway on that pathway. I'll be interested to know what that diameter is, really.
Yeah, it has been reduced, but it is maintained at a minimum of footway width of 2 metres around the whole of the curtain, which is the north and the west.
Can you go back to the first issue, Alison, the original scheme?
Councillor Pinker.
Because I think the other thing about the back is we removed the cycle spaces, haven't we? Which gives us the more space to play with, because we've removed the cycle spaces, put them inside Casablanca, which gives us the room to play with.
The point I'm trying to sort of tease out is if you've pushed back from the railway side into the site, obviously that's needed a similar pushback perhaps into the space on the other side. Now, clearly they're going to be active retail units, as I understand, on that side also. Will they have any curtilage space other than the public park?
Well, they never had any dedicated. It's the same as it was before, just a bit smaller. Yeah.
So they'll all be opening straight onto a footpath too.
So Councillor Pinker, you
I think I made the point, yeah.
okay.
What we will do though on the submission drawing, so it's very clear, is we'll mark up the difference between the two. But if you look at one in the square, people are opening their doors onto the footpaths. I think the focus was, and the reason for it was explicit, it was the conflict with pedestrian movements in the square that I think we were dealing with.
Councillor Page.
Thank you, Chair. You were talking about having, if I understood you correctly, the cycle path as flush to the existing pavements on either side. Is there a rationale to support that, rather than it to indicate a separation by raising it or lowering?
I think there's all raft things, but Andrew.
Yeah, I mean you can clearly delineate it with an upstand, but with pedestrians crossing that space, and for that space to look as one uniform space, we saw that as being flush, but being delineated with clearly delineated with channel blocks and a contrasting material. So although the cycleway further to the north, running alongside the station approach road, does have a small upstand, we don't think that that's appropriate through the public railway area with the station.
And I think the cycle campaign will with us on that they will contend that as long as it's delineated and clearly marked as such, they wouldn't want to see those small curves and distinct because of mobility issues and all sorts of things in this space.
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, on the southwestern boundary of the building, you've got blocks indicated there, and I just wanted, I didn't quite catch what you said. Are those against the busway? What are they? Sorry, Councillor Banco is saying suds?
Seats.
Oh, seats. Sorry. So they're seats because people might be waiting for a bus there, or
Tired after show.
or going out after having got a cup of coffee, or what? Because actually 2 metres is not very wide if you've got a bus herring past, but I'm just slightly... I wondered if they might be the cycle racks, but I think you said you'd moved them inside the building, hadn't you? They're not planters, are they? Please, no.
To be perfectly honest, I don't know the answer to that question. It could be that it's just it's part of the drawing that shows where the root protection or the root zone is of the tree. I'm not sure. I will need to
Oh,
find
they're
out.
planters. They're planters, aren't they? You can see a tree in them.
I'll ask the because I see resistance to necessarily having some block.
No, could be a protection area, which is not a planter, it's just
It's just the underground area of that is
box underground.
But however, if that is the case, I'm relieved, because actually I'm just sort of concerned that there should be some protection for pedestrians between the building and the busway.
I think you'll find that's probably a more generous area than we've indicated on that plan, but we will certainly tidy it up.
Actually, logically, there's got to be route protection.
I think they are.
Because the green circle's in the middle of them.
Yes,
They're definitely
exactly.
trees in the
Yes,
middle of
the
it.
sea, there's trees in the middle of the sea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, if there are no further questions, I'd like to thank the team for being involved. Just ask Sharon whether officers feel they need any further clarification. In that case, I'll close the meeting and wish everyone a very happy Christmas.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.